This is a literature review on the ethical considerations in the use of robotic exoskeletons. Robotic exoskeletons can provide assistance to people with mobility impairments, but their uses raise question about the impact on the user's sense of self and identity. This topic could explore the ethical considerations involved in using robotic exoskeletons and consider potential solutions for addressing these concerns. The contents of this literature review include the main ethical theories of Aristotle, Kant, and Mill, as well as a few papers about the ethical concerns of robotic exoskeletons and their references. Let's have an overview of what types of ethical theories are present and who introduced them. Virtue ethics focuses on the moral character of individuals and encourages them to develop good habits and dispositions rather than simply following rules or maximizing outcomes. In essence, virtue ethics asks the question, what kind of person should I be, rather, what should I do? Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that emphasizes the importance of maximizing overall happiness while minimizing overall pain. Utilitarianism focuses on the outcomes or consequences on actions rather than moral character of individuals or adherence to rules. In essence, utilitarianism asks the question, what action will produce the greatest overall happiness? Deontology is an ethical theory that emphasizes the importance of adhering to moral duties and rules, regardless of the consequences or outcomes. Deontological ethics focuses on the actions themselves rather than their outcomes or consequences, and asks the question, what is the right thing to do regardless of consequences? Aristotle's virtue ethics is an ethical theory that focuses on the cultivation of virtues or positive character traits as the key to living a good, flourishing life. Aristotle believed that there are two types of virtues: intellectual virtues and moral virtues. Intellectual virtues are acquired through learning and education, while moral virtues are acquired through practice and habituation. Moral virtues such as honesty, courage, and compassion are central to Aristotle's ethical theory, as they enable individuals to act in accordance with reason and to make ethical decisions. One of the main advantages of virtue ethics is its emphasis on character and development of the moral virtues, which can have a positive impact on individuals and society. Virtue ethics also allows for flexibility and nuance in ethical decision making, as it focuses on the overall character of individuals and their actions rather than adhering to strict rules or principles. One potential disadvantage of virtue ethics is its subjectivity. Virtues may be defined differently by different cultures or individuals, and it can be difficult to determine which virtues are most important or how they should be prioritized in ethical decision making. Kant's ethical theory, known as deontology, is based on the idea that actions should be evaluated based on their intrinsic moral value, rather than their consequences or outcomes. One advantage of Kant's ethical theory is its emphasis on the inherent moral worth of individuals and the importance of treating individuals with respect and dignity. Individuals are expected to act in accordance with universal moral values regardless of the specific consequences of their actions. Kant believed that actions must be performed for the sake of duty rather than personal gain or utility in order to be morally right. Kant's theory may be criticized because of the emphasis on intrinsic value of actions. It may not always provide a clear guideline for resolving conflicting moral duties or weighing the importance on competing moral principles. Mill's ethical theory, known as utilitarianism, is based on the idea that actions should be evaluated based on their overall utility or the amount of happiness they produce for individuals affected by the action. One advantage of Mill's ethical theory is its emphasis on promoting the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. Individuals are expected to consider the consequences of their actions on others and act in a way that promotes overall well-being. Utilitarianism recognizes that the right action may vary depending on the specific circumstances of the situation. Utilitarianism may be criticized for its emphasis on happiness or pleasure, but it may not always prioritize individual rights. Utilitarianism may be criticized for its lack of consideration for those who may be negatively affected by the actions that produce overall utility. This paper, Overtrust of Pediatric Healthcare Robots, a preliminary survey of parent perspectives, provides ethical concerns in the biomedical field within children and parents. The over-reliance of parents on the healthcare robots intended for pediatric use could result in ethical issues and potential risks for both the child and the parents. In the paper, parents overwhelmingly reported health levels of trust in healthcare robots and expressed a willingness to use them to provide medical care for their children. This shows that parents may blindly rely on the effectiveness and safety of healthcare robots without critically assessing their appropriateness or accuracy, which can lead to ethical concerns. In the paper, parents also reported that they would rely on the robot's decisions and follow its instructions without question. This highlights the potential overtrust in healthcare robots, as parents may blindly follow the robot's decision and instructions without considering other factors such as the child's unique medical history, the potential for errors in the robot's programming or operation, and the need for human oversight in decision making. This overtrust in healthcare robots can lead to ethical concerns such as the erosion of patient autonomy as the child's medical care is being outsourced to a machine, and the potential for harm such as in cases where the robot's decision-making process is flawed or inaccurate. The article highlights the need for further research and consideration of ethical implications in the development and use of healthcare robots, particularly for vulnerable populations such as children. In the article, Overtrust of Pediatric Healthcare Robots and Preliminary Survey of Parent Perspectives have several concerns. To address these concerns, several potential solutions have been suggested, including educating parents and caregivers about the capabilities and limitations of healthcare robots, implementing safety protocols, conducting extensive testing, involving stakeholders in the development process, establishing ethical guidelines, and regularly monitoring and evaluating healthcare robots. These measures aim to ensure the safe and ethical development in the use of healthcare robots, particularly for vulnerable populations such as children. This paper, Domestic Use of the Exoskeleton for Gait Training in Patients with Spinal Cord Injuries, Ethical Dilemmas in Clinical Practice, provides ethical dilemmas in the biomedical field for rehabilitating patients. The use of exoskeletons for gait training in patients with spinal cord injuries at home presents ethical challenges related to patient autonomy, obtaining informed consent, and the possible long-term impacts of using these devices. One of the main issues in patient autonomy and informed consent, patients must be fully informed about the benefits and risks of exoskeleton use and have the right to choose whether to use the device. This shows that the authors consider patient autonomy and informed consent as a significant ethical concern in the use of exoskeletons for gait training in patients with SCI, spinal cord injuries. Another concern is the potential long-term effects of exoskeleton use, including changes in the patient's body structure and the impact on social and psychological well-being. This highlights the potential long-term effects of exoskeleton use and how they can impact the patient's social and psychological well-being, which are ethical considerations that need to be taken into account when deciding on the use of exoskeletons in clinical practice. Overall, the article provides a thorough exploration of the ethical dilemmas associated with the domestic use of exoskeletons in patients with spinal cord injuries, highlighting the importance of considering patient autonomy, informed consent, and potential long-term effects of exoskeleton use. In the article, Domestic Use of the Exoskeleton for Gait Training in Patients with Spinal Cord Injuries, Ethical Dilemmas in Clinical Practice discusses the ethical challenges in using exoskeletons. To address these ethical challenges, potential solutions could include establishing clear guidelines for informed consent, ensuring ongoing medical supervision, and monitoring the long-term impacts of exoskeleton use on the patients. These measures aim to promote ethical and safe use of exoskeletons for gait training in patients with spinal cord injuries, while also respecting patient autonomy and informed decision-making. This paper, Ethical Considerations in Providing an Upper Limb Exoskeleton Device for Stroke Patients, provide ethical considerations for stroke patients. The use of an upper limb exoskeleton device for stroke patients entails several ethical concerns that require attention in clinical practice and research. In the paper, the provision of exoskeleton devices for stroke patients raises several ethical considerations such as patient autonomy, informed consent, and potential long-term effects of the exoskeleton use. This indicates that there are important ethical issues that need to be taken into account when providing an upper limb exoskeleton device for patients. In the paper, the use of exoskeleton devices for stroke patients may raise questions about the role of technology in healthcare and potential impact on the doctor-patient relationship. This highlights the broader ethical concerns associated with the use of technology in healthcare and the need to balance the benefits of technology with the importance of maintaining a human-centered approach to patient care. Overall, the article emphasizes the need for careful consideration of ethical issues when providing an upper limb exoskeleton device for stroke patients, including ensuring patient autonomy, obtaining informed consent, and monitoring the long-term effects of exoskeleton use. This highlights the importance of incorporating ethics into development and deployment of medical technologies to ensure that they promote patient welfare and are consistent with ethical principles. The article, Ethical Considerations in Providing an Upper Limb Exoskeleton Device for Stroke Patients, highlights the ethical considerations related to the use of upper limb exoskeleton devices. To address these ethical concerns, potential solutions could include establishing clear guidelines for informed consent, ensuring ongoing medical supervision, and monitoring the long-term effects of exoskeleton use on stroke patients. These measures aim to promote ethical and safe use of upper limb exoskeleton devices for stroke patients, while also respecting patient autonomy and the doctor-patient relationship. These are the references used in this literature review, including the papers, as well as the definitions provided in the beginning of main ethical theories. Thank you for listening about my concerns on robotic exoskeletons in the biomedical field.